Have you ever heard of a lawyer hiring another lawyer? I know, it sounds a little bit like the start of a joke, right? But it's actually a super important everyday part of the legal world. Today, we're going to unpack this whole system, the correspondent attorney system, and figure out why on earth your lawyer might need to get a lawyer of their own. So let's just start right there. It's a perfectly fair question. I mean, you've hired an expert to handle your case, so why would they suddenly need to bring in someone else? Well, the answer doesn't really have anything to do with skill or expertise. It's all about geography.
Okay, here's the core of the problem. Location, location, location. Courts have what are called specific jurisdictions. What that really means is your lawyer in, say, Johannesburg can't just hop on a plane and file papers in a Cape Town court. See, there's often this strict radius, maybe 15 kilometers or so, that says who's allowed to practice there. So when your case falls outside that little circle, your lawyer needs a local on the ground.
And this whole geographical thing creates a need for what is basically a legal team-up. So to really get how this all works, we first need to meet the players involved in this long-distance legal dance. Let's break down the two main roles. All right, on one side, you've got the instructing attorney. You can think of them as the main contractor, the principal. They're the one who has the relationship with you, the client, and they are running the whole show. Then, on the other side, you have the correspondent attorney. They're the agent, kind of like a subcontractor, who is right there where the action is happening. They aren't managing the entire case. Nope. They just carry out very specific tasks they're given, like filing some documents or making a quick appearance in court. Okay, so how does everyone get paid? Well, it's not quite as simple as just sending an invoice. There's this professional tradition, this old school custom, that works almost like a secret handshake. And it all revolves around something called the 1/3 allowance. That's right, 1/3. This professional courtesy, this allowance, is a standard practice in South African law. It's an agreement where the correspondent attorney gives a piece of their fee back to the instructing attorney. Let's walk through a really simple example to see exactly how it works. So just imagine the correspondent does some work, and their fee for that work is 300 Rand. They will bill for the full 300. But then they apply this 1/3 allowance, which in our case is 100 Rand. They essentially give back that 100 Rand to the instructing attorney. So the correspondent's final take-home pay is 200 Rand. And the key thing to get here is that the instructing attorney gets a cut for finding and managing the whole process. So we've got a fee and we've got an allowance. Now let's follow the money, because the accounting can seem tricky, but it's actually all about understanding two different points of view and one golden rule that governs all legal money matters. First things first, the golden rule of legal accounting. Law firms essentially have two pockets. The trust pocket is for the client's money. It is absolutely not the firm's money to spend. Then there's the business pocket. That holds the firm's own money, their earned income. And keeping these two completely separate, it is totally non-negotiable. Okay, so let's put ourselves in the correspondent's shoes. From their perspective, it's pretty straightforward. You do the work, you send a bill for your full fee. Then, in your books, you record that 1/3 you're giving back as an allowance. A lot of times, you might also be the one who collects a payment from the other side in the lawsuit, which you'll need to process before you send the rest of the money on.
Now, let's switch hats. If you were the instructing firm, you get that bill from the correspondent. You'll pay it, but you'll use the client's money from your trust account to do it. But here's the real kicker. That 1/3 allowance you get back, that is your income. It goes straight into your business account because that's the fee you've earned from managing the correspondent.
Okay, now that we kind of see it from both sides, let's take a look at the official rulebook. We're going to cover the most important regulations, and then I'm going to leave you with a really handy pro tip to remember how this all fits together. All right, here are the key rules you have to remember. First, and this one is critical, you always use the client's trust money to pay the correspondent if there's money in there. You never use the firm's own business funds for that. Second, both attorneys have to account for VAT on their share of the income. And finally, just to make life easier, the correspondent will often collect a payment, take out their fees and the allowance, and then just send the net balance over. And now for that pro tip I promised you. Now, it might sound a little bit cheeky, I'll admit, but to remember the structure of a correspondent statement of account, there's this amazing mnemonic device. Just think. CRAP. It stands for C, collections. What money did you collect? R, retentions. What are you keeping for your own fees? A, allowances. That's the 1/3 you're giving back. And finally, payment, the net amount you're sending over to the instructing firm. CRAP. I promise you, it's an unforgettable way to track how the money flows.
And lastly, what's the ultimate rule here? Who's on the hook? Well, a directive from the Legal Practice Council makes it crystal clear. The buck stops with the instructing attorney. They are the ones who are ultimately responsible for making sure the correspondent gets paid, unless, of course, they made a totally different agreement right at the start.
So there you have it. It's a whole system of agents, professional handshakes, and some really strict accounting rules that keeps the wheels of justice turning, even across huge distances. It's a model that's really built on tradition and trust. But, it does leave us with a pretty big question. In our modern digital world of e-filing and virtual courts, is this centuries-old system still the best way forward? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.